Introducing the Lisa Chill Collection, your answer to hot nights. These mattresses beat the heat with ultra-cool covers, whisking away heat for the perfect sleep temperature. Save up to $460 on Chill mattresses and get 2 free pillows when you shop now. iHeart listeners can save an extra $50 off by visiting lisa.com/iHeart. That's LEESA.com/iHeart. Exclusions apply. See lisa.com for more details.
Cruising out of Port Canaveral? Don't miss the boat. It's time to set the cruise control with a trip to Cocoa Beach. With hotels and resorts just minutes away from the ships at Port Canaveral, Cocoa Beach is the perfect place for you to get into vacation mode before your cruise. Start your cruise vacation with a walk on the beach. Cocoa Beach on Florida's Space Coast. Find out more at legendarycocobeach.com.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. 1 touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
And we welcome you to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Paul Dottino at Giants WFAN. Jonathan Casillas will be with us momentarily as he tries to fight some of the snow-covered navigational issues as he makes it to our studio. Our phone number is 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. We'll be here for the next hour to talk Giants football and maybe a couple of other assorted NFL items as we go through what's happening here on this really nasty Tuesday in North Jersey. All kinds of rain and snow showers and all kinds of stuff coming down. The good news is it's only about an inch accumulation as opposed to those poor people in Buffalo that had to shovel out of a blizzard to try to get into the stadium to watch the Bills' victory in the playoffs yesterday. In the meantime, you can find an archive of this show after it's all done in our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcast. Now, folks, I want to start off the show by just going over a couple of real quick things. The NFC East is now 0-0 going into 2024 because both the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles were humiliated, embarrassed, and handedly wiped out of the first round of the NFC playoffs. Now, I find it interesting that there's a lot of stuff circulating around the rumor mill about those coaching staffs, which, of course, upheaval, as we know, is usually not a great thing in the NFL. You like to try to have some sense of consistency and stability, especially if you believe you're on the right track. But based on what the national networks on TV and, of course, the national scribes have also said, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty right now what's going to happen within the hierarchy of the coaching staffs with the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. We already know the Washington Commanders have totally cleaned out their situation. And so right now, the Giants, although one coordinator spot, the defensive coordinator's position, is still not filled, and the special teams coordinator position is still not filled. Those are two spots, of course, of significance, but the head coaching spot is there. Brian Daboll is solid. He is on good ground. And so that gives the Giants a leg up in that regard. And so it remains to be seen how the other three teams in the division decide they're going to move forward. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are approximately $20 million over the salary cap for the fall of 2024. They've got a host of things they are going to have to do. They can't avoid it. They've got a mess economically. And, of course, one of those messes is Dak Prescott, a guy who I've always believed was overrated, should never have been in the MVP conversation to begin with, and obviously we now see why. That's an issue moving forward with them. I don't think Pollard has proven to be the bell cow running back that they need him to be. He basically is better off as part of a tandem, not as the lead guy. And we've also seen how Dallas's back seven was greatly exposed. We also saw that Mike McCarthy continues his string of having 12-plus win teams get knocked out within a round or two of the playoffs, not even able to reach the championship game. So, there are a lot of issues, obviously, that the Cowboys have to deal with. What about Philadelphia? Well, Jalen Hurts, we may have seen the best of him a couple of years ago. He shouldn't have been in the MVP conversation this year either. Troy Aikman mentioned yesterday that he may even have an injured knee. We know he was badly battered and beaten up by the Giants just a couple of weeks ago, and he had a dislocated finger. The truth is, he looks tentative in the pocket. He's not running with the quickness or athleticism that he did a couple of years ago. He does not necessarily make proper decisions. Still has a great arm, still has athleticism, but he's off kilter. He's not the quarterback that he was. How many times in the last month? Now, I watched a lot of Eagles highlights because they had to play the Giants twice in the last month of the season. How many times did you see him just throw the ball up for grabs, or even worse, throw off his back foot or throw off balance? These were things that people used to say about Eli Manning during the last years of his career because he didn't have enough protection. Well, the same thing's happening now in Philadelphia. That offensive line is not what it was. It has shown cracks, and Jalen Hurts is the worse off for it. We may have seen the best that he had to offer. Now, in the meantime, another thing to keep in mind is that they have some stalwarts. Cox, Graham, Kelsey, Lane Johnson's getting long in the tooth. They got a bunch of guys, Slay coming off significant injury, and he's up there in age. Bradbury's shown signs. Look, we told you this in the last month on this program, that the Eagles' back seven defensively looked old, looked slow, and looked banged up. And if their front line, their defensive line, was not going to continue to be the dominant front line that they had been the last few years, it was going to show. Well, it showed. They're getting old. The young guys that they have drafted to replace them aren't of the same caliber. And so as a result, there is no camouflaging the weaknesses in their back seven. They got absolutely shredded by Baker Mayfield, who I've also never been a huge fan of, but in my opinion, probably played one of the best 3 games of his NFL career last night. So when you look at all of this and you hear the networks talk about the possibility of coaching changes with the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, here's the one thing different that the Eagles have that the Cowboys don't. The Eagles are about 20-something million under the cap projected for this upcoming season. The problem is their roster, because of the way that they went for the gold these last 2 years, their contracts are as such that they are basically stuck with most of these older players who are now significantly on the down. And they're not in a situation where they can escape those deals without costing themselves a whole lot of salary cap money. So if they want to get younger in the back seven, if they want to try to replenish and help their defensive or offensive lines out, they don't have a ton of money to do it. They're going to have to start parting with some of the veterans who have big contracts and will cause them significant salary cap hits. What I'm trying to tell you, folks, and I hinted at it in the Twitter promo for the show today, is that the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles right now have very shaky apple carts, which potentially could be turned entirely upside down and send this division into a wide open scenario come September. I don't think that is very much out of the question at all. Of course, it remains to be seen if they will make coaching changes, and if they do, who do they hire? Nobody knows that. Just something to ponder. And by the way, you guys know that history is always cyclical, and I'm one who very much is a Giants historian. and very much enjoys the lessons that are taught from looking back at history. I give you this about the Philadelphia Eagles. They had been a perennial playoff team for 4 straight years. Until the end of the 1981 season, they had a 4-game losing streak at the end of the regular season and then won their season finale, but they were in a bad slump, similar to exactly what just happened to them now. They won the final regular season game. Okay, stopped the 4-game skid, but then they had to play the Giants at home in a wild card game. We all know it as the Wally Henry game because their kick returner had trouble holding on to the football, and the Giants took advantage of that and scoring some points. So the Giants go down there in 81, and of course in their first postseason appearance since the 1963 season, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles and basically sent Dick Vermeil and that entire organization into a tailspin where in each of the next 6 seasons, the Eagles could only once get within 500 because they went off a cliff and into a deep ravine. It's often been said that that 81 playoff game was the turnaround that sent the Eagles into a downspin that it took them 7 years to climb out of. Now, I don't know if the Buccaneers win last night is going to do the same thing to the 2023 Eagles that it did to the 1981 Eagles. But there is certainly a parallel here because you had a team under Dick Vermeil that had gone to 4 straight postseasons and was flying high as a legitimate contender. And then their windows started to close, and then the Giants slammed it on their fingers. And it took them a long while to build it back up. Maybe, just maybe, the same thing has happened to the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles. 201-939-4513 is our phone number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. And as Jonathan Casillas finally makes it into the studio after navigating those nasty roads outside, Jonathan, I'll get the weather report from you momentarily. We could tell people before we get to the calls, because I really want to get to a lot of calls today, because I think it's very important that we do. We don't always get to as many calls as we'd like to. We should remind people that the Giants Huddle podcast is available, featuring all long-form interviews with all kinds of NFL dignitaries, coaches, former players, et cetera, who all cover the National Football League. And you can find the Giants Huddle on Giants.com. You can see it on the Giants YouTube channel, all your favorite podcast platforms. Go to Giants.com/podcast. And don't forget, if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave the 5-star positive review. It helps people know that the show is around and it's something that's worth your while. And, of course, Giants fans, remember, Giants season ticket memberships for the 2024 season are now available. Stay connected to the Giants all year long, not just on game days. Memberships are available for next fall. To learn more about the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. Finally, Giants TV is the Giants official connected TV streaming app. Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Good to see you, my friend.
Same here.
So glad you could make it in.
Yeah, thank you.
Was the shoveling a little painful? Or
no, I had a show to do, and we had technical difficulties. So a 15-minute show, usually 15 minutes.
See, I figured there was just ice attached to your windshield.
See, the good thing is I have a Jeep, and all I did was just wipe the snow
off. Very nice.
Drove off.
Of course, we always do that to be safe. Never go on the roads with snow and ice covering your vehicle. We don't do that here in New Jersey. All right, 201-939-4513 is our phone number. And before I get to the calls, just a quick update here from Jonathan. My friend, I was just telling people about the Eagles and Cowboys getting whacked in the first round of the playoffs and how potentially there could be an awful lot of volatility in the NFC East, including potential head coaching changes with Washington, Dallas, and Philadelphia all potentially having to overturn their apple cart. And the Giants, with the stability of Brian Daboll, that gives them a little bit of a leg up in terms of trying to get things going for next season.
Well, the Giants are out a defensive coordinator right now.
They are.
And that was one thing that I think the knock on Philly going into this season, they lost both coordinators. So I'm not saying the Giants are out, of the fire, but I watched both. Of course, I watched the playoff games this weekend, and Philly wasn't too much of a surprise because when Giants played them, later in the season, they look like a broken team. Something happened with them during the year.
They've deteriorated. We're seeing it before our eyes.
It might have been the San Fran game, and then literally since then they only won one game, which was against the Giants, and they just look like a shell of themselves.
And by the way, that came down to the final play.
Right. And look, what they showed the other day in the playoffs, for me it wasn't a big surprise because, like I said, they're a broken team. The surprise for me was Dallas because – Dallas ended up being the best team in the NFC East, the number 2 seed overall in the whole division behind the conference behind the 49ers. And I just thought that, look, yeah, they had their things in the past about, playoff stuff like that. But I'm like, this is a legit team. Dak's playing very well. They have one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best receiver in the league, one of the best defenders, very good cornerbacks.
What happened to LT 2.0, Micah Parsons, in that game? Did he get dressed before kickoff?
But look, they're the biggest.
I'm just checking.
This is probably the biggest choke job in NFL history. From how good they were during the regular season, I mean, the game was over by the middle of the second quarter against the Packers. And I take nothing away from the Packers. I give them their credit. Jordan Love is playing tremendously well in the second half of the season. Probably, one of the better quarterbacks statistically wise. I think he's at 21-1 in his last 9 games.
The O-line, we say it all the time, folks. If your O-line can control the line of scrimmage, it makes everything easier.
100%. And you got a guy like Aaron Jones that can run that football, and the Dallas didn't have an answer. But it's something to that. I'm disappointed in them because they beat the Giants so bad this year. And it's like, how do you guys get to the playoffs and just blow it like that? Green Bay's not that good. They're good, but they're not that good.
Do I need to remind you that the Giants beat the Green Bay Packers
yeah,
on Tommy DeVito's last-minute drive?
Oh, I know that. And it was electric here. It was
electric
here at MetLife. And that one interception, that lone interception, that was from the Giants, from Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
So the Giants figured out how to beat the Packers, and the Cowboys got to the playoffs and did what they pretty much always do in the playoffs, which is lose.
Indeed.
So
201-939-4513. We will go to the phones. I see the lights are starting to blink. We will start with David in Michigan on line 2. You are first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, I'm glad you made it, Jonathan. I thought we were going to have Paulie Solo here.
Nah, I wouldn't let him rock by himself, man. I was coming. I kept Pearson afloat about what was going on just a little bit longer in my show.
I'm just glad he made it in one piece.
Yeah. The roads are slick, though.
I know they are.
Guys that are out there, the roads are slick. There's a lot of black ice.
Be careful,
out there.
folks. It's nasty out.
Even coming in from the players' locker parking lot, those little steps, they were all slick.
Yes.
So I kind of walked in the snow to get in here. So just be careful when y'all driving outside.
It's the same way out here in Michigan right now, and it's pretty cold.
Yeah, but things are heating up because of those Lions, baby. Dan Campbell and company getting it done.
You know what? Paul, I've been out here for 25 years, so the Lions are my second team. You can never leave my first team.
I got you.
The Lions are my second team, and it's very exciting right now for us Lions fans.
It's looking real good out there. You got a national champion in the Wolverines, and now Detroit is kicking up, making some rain.
It was quite a week with the Michigan championship. So, anyhow, before I get into what I want to with the draft, I want to put in a little bit of a weird sort of left field request for sometime in the next couple of months. Can we get George Martin as a guest on the podcast?
I love George. George and I are friends, and we stay in touch every once in a while. We usually don't have guests on the program. Usually that's saved for the Giants huddle.
The huddle, yeah.
Yeah. All right,
that's usually where it goes.
All right, maybe I'll throw the request to the huddle. The reason that I really want to hear from George Martin is that I was looking up, this is a few months ago, I was looking up games started, games played by some of my favorite players, George Martin was a beast of durability.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute beast. The guy played like the equivalent of 10 years without missing a game.
Dave, think about it. 12th round draft choice, right, out of Oregon, where he was a basketball player, all right? He was a power forward on the basketball team, becomes one of the Giants' all-time great defensive linemen. And what a lot of people don't know, okay, is that I believe George retired unofficially with 98 career sacks. That's a pretty good number.
Wow.
He was amazing and such a gentleman too.
No question.
Anyway.
At one time had the NFL record
look,
for most career touchdowns by a defensive player too.
Yeah,
there you
7
go.
touchdowns up here.
Anyway,
stuff,
go ahead.
man.
Go ahead, Dave.
Anyhow, so quick thing on the draft. I don't think that one of the quote unquote top rated quarterbacks is going to be there for us at 6. So what I really don't want to see is, a lot of these so-called beat reporters, and I do mean so-called, are positing, all these things about the Giants maybe going to reach for, and a bunch of the mock drafts are going to reach for the LSU quarterback. I'm not in favor of that. The only two guys to me that are top 10 quarterbacks are May and Williams, and everybody else on a better year would be a day 2 pick, and I don't want to take a day 2 pick at number 6. We have experience doing that, and the outcome is not good. So here's my question: if we are sitting there with, say, a Joe Alt or the top-rated edge rusher at 6, or the LSU wide receiver, would you take one of those 3 guys, or would you rather trade back and collect some draft capital?
Well, I think I'll answer this first and say this, Jonathan. A lot depends on what kind of price you're able to get. Mm-hmm. If you got someone desperate who really wants to come up, and let's say they want to take Penix, right? Now, the guy's got 4 college career season-ending injuries, which to me means he's got a bad red flag on him. I don't want to knock his abilities, but the injury history is just too overwhelming for me to take. Somebody may want him in the top 10 though, and if you can get a ransom, you know what, Jonathan, I would not be adverse to moving down.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the guy past Williams and May. I think the guy that's going to get drafted in the top 10 is the LSU quarterback.
He's a scheme-specific guy, don't you think, Daniels? Don't you think he's got to go somewhere where they want their quarterback to be a track star?
Well, I think from everything I'm reading, he's one of those guys that keeps moving up because there's Paul. You know, every year there's a guy
I know
who moves up.
Yep.
He just does. There's momentum. There's like gasoline in his britches. I
know.
Moving up. I don't want him. My son goes to LSU. I've seen all the games. I don't want the guy.
Well, you know that, if you want Lamar Jackson 2.0 or a version of him, and you're going to run that style of offense, you would understand why somebody would want him, right? Yeah. I mean, Jonathan, speak to this, because there are certain guys who fit certain schemes better.
Oh, yeah. Look, there's a GM and a head coach right now that probably has him rated as a number 1 quarterback on their
board. Could be. Because they absolutely could be.
Into what they want to do personality-wise, scheme-wise, and culture-wise in their program. But I want to speak for the Giants right now. And, of course, this is all speculation because, we don't know exactly what they're going to do. Nobody knows. And I don't think the Giants knows exactly what they're going to do until it kind of starts unfolding as the draft goes on. But I think the only thing that the Giants are not going to do, and I think I said this last week on BBKL, I don't think they're going to move up. Because in order for them to move up, they have to sacrifice a lot. They have to give up too much to move up. And the Giants are not one player, one quarterback away from being competitive in the division and being competitive in the NFC and potentially, winning more playoff games like Daniel Jones did last year. Yeah, I guess last year you can call it. The Giants, I think, they're going to do what's best, what they feel is best, what falls to them. Because even though you're 6, the first 5 picks, you don't. It's not locked in stone. Nobody knows exactly what the teams in front of the Giants are going to do. So with the Giants, they have to figure out who's on their board, who's the best available for who they have that falls to them at number 6. Will it be a quarterback? It possibly could be a quarterback. Could it be one of those? Could it be Williams or May that possibly falls back? Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen in the draft. Teams always surprise people the day of the draft. And I just think the only thing the Giants aren't going to do is move up. I think they got to give up too much capital.
I'll say this, Jonathan. I think of the first 5 picks in front of the Giants, I think you could go to the bank with the 2 quarterbacks, May and Williams and Harrison. 3 of the first 5 are going to be those 3 guys. Yep. I would go to the bank with that.
Okay.
So that means, to me, there's only 2 potential variables. And those potential variables could be anything.
Right.
And that's why it's sticky for the Giants at 6, because you just don't know. And maybe somebody even winds up trading up ahead of them to go get
in front.
Let's just say the LSU QB.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I'll say this, though, Dave. You've heard me say this before. Schmelk asked me this a couple of weeks ago on the show. And I think he was all in if they don't take a quarterback, because I don't know that any of us are like lock stock on a quarterback. And first of all, we all say on this show, you don't get locked into a position. That's a very bad thing to do.
Yeah.
But here's what I said to John, if you had to narrow my focus down to a position, I really think the Giants need a pass rusher. The problem is,
absolutely.
Right? But the problem is, Latu from UCLA and Verse from Florida State are probably not worth the 6th overall pick in the draft, which says to me that if you're going to wind up considering those guys, it means probably moving down from 6.
Right. Which is what I would like to do if they have a player that falls to them, or not even falls to them. If when they get to drafting at the number 6 pick overall, their best player is not valued that high, then I would love the Giants to go ahead and go backwards and get more draft capital to bring in more good players, more young talent, because I think the Giants do a tremendous job in picking young talent, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, I think he's a tremendous football player and he has a great future. But let's talk about the picks that Dayball and Shane picked, right? I think Jalen Hyatt in the 3rd round was a great pick. Deonte Banks in the 1st round was one of the best, I think, rookie corners playing this year.
Terrific.
And even John Michael Schmitz. Starting a guy from week 1 at the center position is not easy to do.
No.
Did he have a fantastic year? Absolutely not.
He faded down the stretch because it was hard. Rookies hit a wall, especially in the middle of the line.
100%. And with all the moving pieces that happened on the offensive line play for the Giants just wasn't that good overall.
Right.
So I expect him to progress as well. And the Giants bring in a couple more pieces to help solidify the offensive line. And I think that's going to be a combination of veterans and younger guys through the draft and through free agency. So I expect the Giants to draft well, and I think the more draft picks they have, the more opportunities they have at selecting guys that fit the culture of what they're trying to do here.
Thanks, Dave.
We're on the same page, man. I am all about trading back. Imagine if we had 3 second-round picks this year.
Right.
I mean,
I hear you.
And maybe a 4th, maybe 2 4s or 2 3s. I'm all about trading back.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the phone call. 201-939-4513. Offensive line coach Carmen Brasillo comes over from the Raiders and is now the new offensive line coach of the Giants. That's another piece of this equation that needs to be factored in. What does he think when he evaluates the guys in this room? We have talked about how the Giants have some young players who, because of a cluster of injuries, have yet to reach their potential, whether it's Evan Neal, whether it's Joshua Ezeudu, whether it's Marcus McKeithen. These guys have been riddled by injury. We don't know what they are. Now, as John will say many times, you don't want to put too much hope in a guy who's been hurt a lot. But you have to evaluate, and it's hard to do. But what do those guys have, Jonathan? And what does the new offensive line coach think he can get out of them? That's got to be part of this equation.
Yeah, but it's a good thing about hiring Coach Priscillo is when he comes in, he has no bias to anybody.
Correct.
He's just going to go ahead and watch the film, and he's going to evaluate. He's going to look at the injury history of some of these guys and be like, do we want this guy moving forward? Does it mean that he's going to overhaul the offensive line? No, it doesn't. But he comes in as an unbiased guy. Every single coach in the NFL has their guys, whether it's coaches underneath them or above them, and players that they know can do a certain job or they feel some type of way about. Like Steve Spagnuolo. I was a Steve Spagnuolo guy.
Yep.
I was with him in New Orleans, and we weren't that good. But then he brought me here to New York. He did that. And for me, like, I got to tip my hat to him because if it wasn't for Spags, I don't know if I would end up in New York. But some people, they have their guys. Priscillo's coming in here. Maybe he brings somebody, from, that's free agent or something like that.
He could.
But for the roster for the New York Giants, the offensive lineman, he's going in with an unbiased look. He's going to look at all the film for the past probably 2 years to see what these guys are all about, and he's going to make his evaluation. And there's not going to be, oh, man, we're going to keep this guy around because he's one of my guys. He doesn't have that.
No, he does not.
So I think that's a good thing. It's a good new face in the offensive line room, heading the room. And everybody's talking about the offensive line. Everybody knows that the offensive line struggled, for a long time, not just the last year. The Giants' offensive line has struggled for a long time.
Evan Neal has battled injuries for 2 seasons, and he has yet to reach his potential. Maybe this change with a new perspective and a fresh slate allows him to move on and become the player he needs to be. Maybe it does.
We hope so because
the Giants certainly hope so.
For his sake,
for everybody's sake.
For his sake, because I'm a former player, I try to put myself in the player's shoes. And I talked about Evan Neal. No one has a more difficult 2 years than him because the amount of injuries he's had, the amount of scrutiny that he's faced, and then also some things that he said. He kind of put himself in the box, and hopefully that can turn around for him. Because, look, I want everybody to make money in the NFL, to play a long career, to win a Super Bowl. All those things can't happen, but at least stay healthy and at least fulfill your potential on who you were meant to be in the NFL. Because you only have a short window.
No doubt.
And Evan Neal, hopefully he plays 10 years. If not, the league average is 3 years. That means he's approaching that average coming up this year. And let's see how he does because a healthy Evan Neal is something that I don't think we've seen since he's been here. And I would like to see what a healthy Evan Neal brings to the table.
201-939-4513. We've got about a half hour to go. And you know what, folks? I think I want to try to make it rapid fire because I know there's a lot of you who probably wanted to get in during the season or right after the season was over and didn't get a chance. I want to try to make this a call-eccentric show. So I'm going to try to see if we can shorten them a little bit and get it to as many people as we can. Let's go to line 3. Vinny from Florida. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, Paulie.
Hi.
So I'll do a little pivot, and I'll just get a couple questions in, and then I'll take it off the air to respect you guys' time constraints. I wanted to mention 2 things. First of all, you guys said 1-5. We were in the division. We ended up 3-3 in the division year, so that's an improvement.
Yes,
that's
it is.
Good thing. Wanted to ask you one question, and I'm going to ask 2 questions. This first question is, I think our general manager, Joe Shane, learned a lesson in getting guys on the team that are punt returners. I think when Gunnar came in, we saw you can't use an Eric Gray if. When this guy, as soon as he came in, he was averaging a first down per punt return. And in my opinion, he changed the dynamic of the return team.
Joe Shane admitted that during our bye week when he said to the media, that's on me. I thought he could do it. Good. He did a little bit in college. That's on me. He took the rap for that. And Olszewski turned out to be a great blessing, and I certainly hope they bring him back.
Yep.
Yeah, and I certainly say, hey, everyone's human, so people got to make mistakes. And my last question, which I'll take off the air, I read an article in ESPN, now that Wink's gone. Oh, and before that, I don't know if you're aware, Jason Kelsey retired.
So they said that after the game yesterday that they thought it was going to be the case. I don't know. Did he officially announce it today? Is that now official?
I don't know if he announced it, but it's on
it's been out everywhere in the networks that he is intending to retire.
Yeah,
that is correct.
He's 36 years old. I mean, he's not a spring.
Yeah, he's a Pro Bowl player, is what he is, and he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, question to you: I read an article. Jordan Renan wrote it. It said with losing Wink, the Giants are either going to retool or revamp. their defense. Can you explain to me and the greater audience the differences in the two and what that means? I look at revamping means, hey, keep the players, and I look at retooling as, hey, we've got some good players. So would you be kind enough to explain that and kind of give your worldview on what the best move is for that? And I appreciate you guys.
Benny, thanks so much for the call. 201-939-4513. We have lines open if you'd like to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Giants can go one of two ways, and I think that's the retool and the revamp. I don't know, the terminology-wise, which one's which, but I think the Giants could do one of two things. Number one, they look at the roster defensively and how it's structured and try to get a coach that matches that, and that could be in-house already. Some guys that are familiar with Wink's system and what he's done and is running something similar to what he's done, because the body types here does not fit a conventional 4-3 type of defense.
Correct.
It's more of a 3-4 type of defense where you have your stand-up guys on the outside, which are not defensive ends. Like those pass rushers, Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau, they're not typical defensive ends.
Neither is Tamon Fox.
They're not big enough.
Or Isaiah Simmons.
Right. Their body size doesn't match a typical defensive end like a JPP. JPP is about 6'5", 270 to 280 pounds. Those guys are nowhere close to that. And if you run a different type of scheme and you bring a defensive coordinator in, I think me and Schmelk was looking at Leslie Frazier last week. He runs a 4-3 defense.
Correct, he does.
Which requires that type of body type at defensive end, a.k.a. outside linebacker.
So does Rod Marinelli, who has been retired for a year. But if he were to come back into the league, he's a 4-3 guy.
So the retooling, I think, is bringing in a similar head coach and just, figuring out what works and who works. But revamping means you're bringing in another coordinator that runs something different than what Wink Martindale does, that requires different type of body parts, bodies in the defense, which is going to mean new players in, some players out, because as of right now, this defense is structured to run like Wink Martindale's defense, which is like an odd front type of defense with the guy covering up the center and Dexter Lawrence, and then some defensive backs on the back end that play mostly man coverage. And the Giants, if they bring in a defensive coordinator that runs a 4-3 defense with basically zone principles behind it, that revamps the entire defense.
Correct.
And yes, I think you got some guys like a Deonte Banks that can play zone if he needs to. Even Adore, he's been in the league long enough to do so. But then you got to figure out what those offside linebackers, what they're going to be, because you're not going to get rid of Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau's here for a while.
You have to figure out how you're going to project the future of a Banks who's a press man, right? You got to figure out what are you going to do with Isaiah Simmons. If you're bringing him back, I don't think you're bringing him back under a 4-3 scheme. That's not what he does.
It depends.
What do you do with Boogie Basham?
But there's
who didn't get much of a chance this year.
There's ways you can use every single defensive player on the roster in any type of defense.
You can, but some guys are better suited for one style than the other.
Oh, yes, 100%.
You can morph them into different formations, but some guys are better at one than the other.
I agree, and I'll use myself for an example.
Yeah.
Like I'm a 4-3 outside linebacker.
Yes.
I'm off the ball type of linebacker.
I agree totally.
But I played as a Sam linebacker on the line of scrimmage, which for me, not what I'm good at. That is literally opposite of what I
was not your
should
forte.
be doing. I'm not a big guy. Yeah, I have decent arms. I am strong, but not with no type of running start. I need some type of running start, some type of momentum against these linemen. If a lineman is 1 foot away from me, I'm not going to win that. There's no way I can win that. I'm not strong enough. I'm not big enough. I just can't. I can't hold up against a guy that's
the same thing with Isaiah Simmons.
Right.
Isaiah Simmons is a space blitzer.
Yes, he is.
You put him right up against somebody on the line. He's not going to win. He's not going to win.
He gets smothered. And then also I played as a middle linebacker in a 3-4 defense, which is similar to almost an outside linebacker in a 4-3 defense because you're off the ball and you're covered up by linemen.
Right.
And the Giants have to figure out if they bring in a defensive coordinator that runs something totally different than what Wink does, they're going to have to go man for man to see who fits in his scheme. And if they bring in a new guy that requires defensive ends in a 4-3, guys have to come in because the Giants don't really have that on the roster.
They're going to have to do some adjusting.
Yes, for sure.
I think I was saying last week about this. If they go that way, Ryder Anderson suddenly has a place on this team.
Right. He's a
4-3 defensive end.
Yes, he is. He's a big guy.
Okay.
He's a heavier guy.
Bingo.
But he's not an interior defensive lineman.
No.
He's an outside.
A 4-3 defensive end. That's what he is. So, look, they've got Jordan Riley. I think Riley does fit into the 3-4 if they want to stay this way. A'Shawn Robinson absolutely does.
Yep.
So they've got – it's easier for them to tweak or, twist or play with as opposed to revamp. Revamp is going to take a lot of doing.
Yes, which is, it's hard, but it's possible.
It's possible, but it'll take a lot of doing.
But this is the thing. As of right now, there's going to be a new defensive coordinator in, so things will have to get learned.
NFL Network is reporting Kelsey announced his retirement, so perhaps it was made official today, just so you guys know.
I saw his face after the game, man.
You could tell.
Late in the game, he looked like, because he was emotional. And he wasn't emotional about losing. He was emotional about, this is it. Like, I think this is it for me. And you could tell in his face how it was, man. And
he might have even come back this year because they were so close last year.
I think so. Yeah, Pearson, I agree with that.
And I got to tip my hat to what he's done in his career because I played against the guy, multiple teams, not just here in the Giants. I played against him, for different teams that I played for. Nothing but a pro, one of the fastest, quickest, most athletic centers you've ever met.
And technique is off the charts.
Unbelievable because he's not a big guy.
No.
And he has to handle a guy like Dexter Lawrence who probably outweighs him by 40, 50 pounds.
Mike Webster, who I still think was probably the greatest center of all time. Now, Jim Otto of the Raiders has a real claim to that too. Dwight Stevenson. I mean, there've been several. But Webster was one of those guys who, even back in the 70s, Mike Webster was considered an undersized center. But his technique and his smarts and the dog and the fight in him was off the charts. I think Mike Webster went to like 9 Pro Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow. I think him and Jim Otto are the greatest centers that have ever played. Hell, the Steelers had DeMonte Dawson too.
Like I don't
remember
know
him, right?
I don't know who all of those guys are because
DeMonte Dawson.
I don't.
Still no.
What year?
You were that young?
What year?
Oh, no, we're not going
I'm born
there.
in 1987, Paul. What year did that guy play?
Never mind.
What year did he play?
To be honest, I don't remember the years.
What? You don't remember years?
Well, he's a Steeler. He wasn't a Giant.
Okay. That's fair.
But he was in the decade of the 80s.
But the guys that you just named, those are your top,
those are
guys,
those are the elites of the elites. And Mike Webster, I think he went almost 10 Pro Bowls or something. He was unbelievable.
Kelsey,
he's
right up there with
he
them?
gets on the elevator to the top.
Yeah,
he's right with those guys. He gets to have dinner with those guys. He's that good. He gets to have dinner with those guys.
Good.
Now he's not at the head of the table.
Right.
I'm still putting Mike Webster at the head of the table, and maybe Jim Otto, but Kelsey gets to eat at the table.
He's invited.
He's invited.
Yeah.
He gets a ticket to that elevator right to the top.
Respect him for what he's done. Sure.
All right. 201-939-4513. We got about, 15 minutes or so left in the program. I'm sorry we took a little long on that call. We go back to Coach Marvin in Delaware on line 2 here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Coach.
How you doing, Paul, Jonathan?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Kelsey, he announced it last night to the team. That's when it was.
Yeah, but they had not had an official announcement from the team until apparently today.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Webster, that was in the 70s.
Yes.
75 teams. That's when he was playing with. Also, Tingelhoff, that was with Minnesota.
Mick Tingelhoff. He played for Tarkenton.
Yeah,
he was snapping for Fran.
There was a lot of them, and Kelsey.
Pearson, you know any of these guys, Pearson?
Coach, these young guys.
I know Jeff Saturday.
Jeff, he was very good. Now he doesn't get to that table though. He doesn't get an invite to that table. He was really good, but he doesn't get to that table.
Yes, but this is good for Jonathan too. I know he loved the history of the game.
He does.
I do.
He does. We talk history all the time.
You got to know about those guys in the 70s. Those guys in the 70s was unbelievable. And I grew up on them. But I talked about George Martin. Back in 2018, I was looking for you, Paul, and you wasn't there. I was at the practice. I think that was the year that Jones got Daniel got drafted, I believe. That was in 18, and I met George Martin. I actually sat with him, and the nicest guy. He treated me like he knew me pretty much all his life.
He's aces. I love George Martin.
Yeah, he was good. The guy was talking about earlier about the LSU guy.
Jones drafted in 19, by the way. I actually believe it or not, I had to look that up. My brain's on overload.
Okay.
Yeah, Saquon's 18, he's 19.
Right.
that was the year I met George Martin. George Martin in the stands when I was at the practice. So he was a nice guy. It was nice to meet him. I was listening to talking about the quarterback. I think I talked about this last week. The Giants are in a position to go in different directions, and they all can be positive.
You're right.
And I think they all will be. They can go receiver, which they can use at number one. They can go with the offensive lineman. Pick your top 6 players, and that's where you go. The guy was speaking of the edge rusher. I'm not going to say he's wrong because nobody's wrong, and this is all opinions. But I just didn't see any edge rushers that's worth drafting.
I'm with you, Coach. I don't think those 2 guys who are easily the top 2.
Yeah.
I don't think they're worth number 6.
And I don't remember the names of the guys right now in the NFL, but there are 3 rookies that are leading the league in sacks as rookies, and they were all third-round picks.
Wow, I didn't know that.
2 from the Rams, and I forgot
Turner,
the other kid.
Turner's up there, the defensive tackle from the Rams.
Right.
He had an incredible season. Yeah. I'll look at the sack leaders. Go ahead, Coach. Yep.
Yeah, but I think everything's in play, even at quarterback. I think what you like in the kid and Jaden Daniels down at LSU. I watched them too. I like what I saw. I heard the guy say he watched all his games and he didn't like him. And my thing is, well, what were you looking at? If he won the Heisman and you said you didn't see anything in him, I find that hard to believe. This kid does have something, and I think he plays in a manner of Josh Allen and in the manner of Lamar down in Baltimore. But he is a pocket passer also. You look at his numbers, you can see he's thrown. I think he threw 40 touchdowns, I believe, last year. And he rushed for 1,000 yards. But, I mean, he's still learning. He's a young guy. He's he's kind of tall and thin, so he may have to bulk up a little bit. But if he's there and you think he's good, I don't have a problem with them taking him. But they can go anywhere. Offensive line would be fine. Wide receiver would be fine. The quarterback would be fine. Like Jonathan said, I don't want to give up my future to go up to get Caleb Williams. I would probably sit back on something like that. But if they decide that's what they want to do, guess what? I'm going to ride with them. If they move up and they give that up, I'm going to ride with them. And we all going to be the same way because we don't have a say-so in this game right now. We all got to sit back and listen to what they're going to say and hope they do what we think they may do, but they're going to do what they want to do.
Of course they are. They also know a hell of a lot more than we do, Coach.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they get paid. Okay?
32 in the whole world, there's 32 football teams, professional NFL teams.
That's right.
And there's only 32 head coaches out of the whole world.
And 32 GMs.
Head coaches.
Yep.
And you think they're going to hire the worst people? No, they're competing against other guys that are competing against them. And yeah, somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose. That's just the way sports is. That doesn't mean that the other person doesn't know anything. Their thinking maybe just didn't work in that moment. But I respect what they do. And you never hear me on the show, I'll fire this guy. I'm not gonna do that because who they gonna hire? Me? No, I can't. I can't compete with those guys. And I understand the fans. But that's why I say I understand what they said. Some of the stuff is true, but I just think they go way over the top. It's just a little
Coach,
too far.
I want to give you a couple of numbers. As of 2021, picks 1 through 10, according to historical data, had a 55% chance of making the Pro Bowl.
That's high.
Believe that?
I believe that.
Picks 1 through 10. 1 through 10. Those are primo picks. Only 55% chance of making the Pro Bowl. 11 to 20 goes down to 44%. Think about that for a second.
Exactly. It is very difficult to pick them.
That's why I laugh at all these amateur GMs in the newspapers and the fans who read the newspapers, and they want to crucify personnel directors and GMs. Oh, first round pick. You can't miss. Guess
Right.
what? With those percentages,
It happens.
you miss a lot.
Yep.
It happens.
That's
Yeah,
that's
it happens.
that's the nature of the game.
And I was
55%
I thought
Pro
that
Bowl,
number was high.
1 to 10.
I thought that number was high because I've seen a lot of different things happen in the league since I've played and since I covered the league, and I thought that number was high because I know a lot of guys that got drafted in the top 10 and didn't do nothing, or first round in general and didn't do anything.
So, if we're going to crucify every single general manager who has made a pick that did not make the Pro Bowl in the top 10, well, then technically there'd probably be no general managers in the NFL today.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yeah, and I told that to John, and you know how you guys always say the fans can pick what the record they think the record's going to be, and y'all put it on the board so we can remember who said what.
Yeah, I know.
I said, do that with the draft pick. Do it with the draft pick. If they don't like the draft pick, they say, oh, we should have got this person. Put him on the board and make that person answer it when that person does not perform. You make them answer because it's easy for me to sit in my living room and tell this guy what he should and shouldn't do. And guess what? When my decision goes wrong, I don't say anything about it. I just sit back. Oh, it was wrong. But they pay a price for that.
That's correct.
Their jobs are on the line. All their decisions it can crucify them at any time. And then if you're a fan and you're sitting in the stands, it's easy to say, you're wrong, you should have did this, you should have did that.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to tell
You're
parents,
right, Coach.
get your own team.
The way
get your own team.
Well,
and
that's why most fans today play fantasy football. And they think that the NFL is fantasy football, but it's not. Because in the NFL, when you make a personnel mistake, you get punished.
Yeah.
You get punished for mistakes.
It's a difficult sport. It's just difficult and not easy to do. And I applaud the guys that played it. Like Jonathan, he among guys that we all dream. He did something
9
that
years,
we dream
man.
of.
9 years. Think about that.
We dream of what he did. And he'll tell you, that is a hard job to do. And it's just a game. And it's very difficult to do. And it's like, to me, it's one of those life sports. It's just like life. It's very difficult to do. And I applaud them for the work they do. And whatever choices they make, I'm with them.
Coach Marvin, thanks for the call. Be well.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
We want to try to get to 2 more calls if we can at least. 201-939-4513. Marty in Manahawkin is on line 3. You're next on the program. Hello.
Hey, Paul. How are you? How's it going?
Okay, how are you?
Good. Paul, maybe you can clear the air for a lot of people. There's a lot of nasty stuff going out over the news.
Half a second, Marty. Half a second. Announcement just came in. What do you got there?
Pete Carmichael for the Saints offensive coordinator just got fired.
How about that?
Yeah.
Woo. Okay. Well, Saints just had some upheaval the last 2 years. Sean Payton left.
Yeah.
And now Carmichael, their offensive coordinator, is gone too. And you know what? They did some things offensively.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, are you kidding me? Between Carr and Winston?
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of the Drew Brees days and what Pete Carmichael did with
Oh yeah, but even
taking them to the Super Bowl.
And then Kamara was out for the first month of the season this year. Anyway, I'm sorry, Marty. Go ahead.
No problem, Paul. Hey, maybe you can clear the air. There's a lot of stuff going out over the like the internet and
Marty, you know better. You know better. Come on now. You know better. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, I know, but it seems some of it has come from some of the beat reporters from the New York area here. So I just wondered
you need to settle down. You need to settle down. Make sure you have a wheelbarrow of salt when you read that stuff.
I like to read it. Makes things spicy.
Anyway, go ahead, Marty.
No, I just wanted, wanted you to clear the air that, it's a lot of, it's just, I don't know why they're even coming up with it.
Clicks.
I find Dable seems to be okay. Seems to get along with everybody.
Let me stop you because people think because you get along with everybody, like that's a good thing. It's not always a good thing all the time. Sometimes you got to be a little bit of a prick. Sometimes you got to put your foot down. Sometimes people don't like you. Some of the best leaders are not liked by everybody.
Not everybody on the teams of Tom Coughlin and Bill Parcells like those coaches.
Oh, yeah. People still to this day dislike Coughlin. I play with Belichick.
And Bill.
I play with Belichick.
But you respect the fact that they get you to win.
There are guys that I play with, and that were prior to me in New England, because I was only there for 6 months. I was only there for a little bit of time. That totally dislike Bill Belichick, but they won a Super Bowl, so they respect him.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
That's it.
That he's respected.
That's it.
And people show up, and they show up to play for him, because people do that for Bill Belichick. That's what Daboll needs. He needs the respect and the command from his locker room and his staff.
And he's got that.
He doesn't have to be liked.
You could see how well they played for him down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
This thing could have spiraled out of control, but they played hard.
Yep.
Anyway, go ahead, Marty.
Sorry, Marty.
What? If there's anything else, we'll give you another shot here before Len gets on the phone.
No, just looking forward to the draft, and I agree with what Jonathan said. You have to go after the players. If you can't get them at the top, then if you have to trade or trade down or do what you have to do to get who you need, then do that. Don't just put your eggs all in one basket.
Yeah, I concur. And for those who want a wide receiver, there are really a bunch of high quality, supposed game-breaking receivers in this draft. You could certainly move down and get one of those if you wanted to. Yep. 201-939-4513. Marty, thanks again for the call. Len in Maryland, you may be our last caller. Depends on how much you have to say. How's it going, Len?
Okay, real good. Hey, listen, first thing, great show all season. Everybody who's involved. Just, you guys do your homework, and on top of that, you're entertaining. It's always
we try to be.
Always a great listen. Always a great listen. Thank you very much. Giant fans are lucky we got the show.
Appreciate
we got the show. Yeah. All right, look, we got a lot of holes. Everybody knows that. This is not breaking news. Just find football players. And I think there's a difference, my thinking, football players related to a particular position, all right? In my mind, the three best football players coming out of college this year, football players, Jalen Daniels, Harrison, not necessarily in this order, by the way, Harrison from Ohio State, and Brock Bowers from Georgia. These are difference makers when they get on the field.
Before you go anywhere, Len, I'm going to let you finish, but I will just interrupt one thing.
Yeah.
Remember when Pitts came out?
Yes.
He was the all-universe tight end that I know Fiegels and I were on this show and we're like drooling like, oh, the Giants will never get a shot at him. But, boy, we wish they could because he's like our favorite player in this draft.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle Pitts, he's been with the Falcons for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
He's gotten better, but did he immediately step on the field to become a difference maker? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I believe Pitts will emerge. I believe he'll emerge. We'll be talking about
Len, you
Pitts.
think he'll have a Evan Ingram type of resurgence of a career? Because Evan Ingram here, he didn't really do too much, and then he gets to Jacksonville.
Oh, my God. How can that?
And I watched Jacksonville play.
Jonathan,
he is balling for Jacksonville, right?
I'll tell you this, Len. Remember this, and you've been listening to this show a long time.
Yeah.
Tight end is one of my positions that I've actually been extremely accurate on when it comes to the draft. You'll remember this. In each of the drafts that these guys were taking, my favorite tight end in each of the drafts, Kittle, when he came out. I was screaming for the Giants to get George Kittle. I was screaming for them to get David Njoku.
Everybody said
Njoku. I was screaming for him. Okay? I was screaming for Jake Ferguson.
Yeah.
Okay? All three of my favorite tight ends in each of those drafts wound up going to the playoffs this
They're
year.
all really good players.
Okay? If there's one thing that I do know, it's tight ends.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right. Let me
Kyle Pitts.
I love Kyle Pitts. Now, Pitts has done good, but he hasn't been the difference maker that everybody wanted to make him out to be.
All right, give him time. Give him another year. Third year kind of thing. Look, 14 teams in the playoffs. If each of them have 3 tight ends, that's 42 tight ends.
Okay.
Guys, at least 30 of those guys could start on the Giants. Daniel belongs in the NFL. He's not a starting tight end. We got to get a tight end.
Waller is the starting tight end.
I'm sorry?
Darren Waller is the Giants' starting tight end, and when he plays, and I get it, availability has been a concern, but I think Darren Waller is really good.
Look at Buffalo last night, Paulie. In the first period, 2 different tight ends scored touchdowns.
Yeah.
There are just a bunch of. We've got to get better at tight end. We have to get better at.
Wow.
Look how these teams are using the tight end, and that's where I'm going with Bowers.
I would not even touch tight end in the draft.
I mean, I like the Giants' top 2 tight ends, but I think if you want, like you said, every team has 3 tight ends.
Yeah.
That's why I think, I like Daniel Bellinger.
But they're not.
Do.
Jonathan, are our 2 tight ends?
Yeah, I like them.
Okay.
I like
Waller and Bellinger, the two of us.
I play against tight ends. That's literally my job when I was in the NFL. I was a covered linebacker. Waller creates a lot of problems because of his athletic ability. He can split up outside. And Daniel Bellinger, he creates a lot of different opportunities too because he's a huge human being who can actually block. I mean, no tight ends right now are blocking any of these pass rushers in the league, so don't go about that. None of these guys are doing that. But he can also split out. He can also play a conventional Y with he's in the line of scrimmage, and they can do tight end things with him, which they can't do with Waller.
So Waller and Bellinger, as far as we're concerned, are solid. There's no reason to touch either one of them.
Right.
All right, guys, real quick, because I know you're running out of time. Thanks for taking my call late, by the way. I appreciate it. All right, let me just say one more thing. I want you to, then I'll get off the line. Answer this question for me. What's wrong with Brock Bowers other than the fact that there's antiquated thinking about tight ends? You can't draft one in the top 10. Oh, you can't draft the tight end. Just like we couldn't draft the safety in the top 10. And I said 2 years ago, Kyle Hamilton is the best football player coming out of college that year. He made All-Pro in his second year.
Mm-hmm.
We got some antiquated thinking about positions. I want you to tell me what's wrong with Bowers other than the fact that he's a tight end and you shouldn't draft tight ends in the top 10.
One thing is you don't need them, Len. That's one of the reasons is you don't need them. You got a lot of other bigger needs on this team than tight end. Come on.
Paulie, they're a whole that's why I said draft the best football.
And let's not forget, because most teams don't believe in drafting a tight end early. I mean, I just told you, Jake Ferguson, George Kittle. You didn't have to draft those guys in the first round. They're sitting there day 2, day 3. Come on.
Yeah,
I'm picking out tight ends in the 4th round every year that are really good. That's what I do.
Jonathan, I respect your opinion. We need 2 new tight ends. We need 2 new tight ends. Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call. I'll call you back next week.
Okay.
201-939-4513. Look, this team needs help on offensive line. This team needs help with a pass rusher. Okay.
There's a lot of areas where the Giants need help. But that was the one I was like, I think they're okay.
We could use a couple upgrades. I mean,
you could definitely use a tight end.
One position you don't need is tight end.
I like the tight ends for the New York Giants, but there's going to be a time, well, not that time, when they get to the 6th pick, when the Giants are picking, when it's about to be their time, there's going to be a predicament that presents itself. It's going to be need versus value, right? How good that player is versus, the value of, the need that you need for, different players, and then also the value of the players that are in front of you that you could potentially pick. The Giants going to have to sit there and look at all of these guys. Okay, we need him, but this guy's a better player. They have that all in front of them. Like you said, I think, the top 5, because it's the Giants pick at number 6, those 5 picks, I think most of them, like you said, are locked in. But a couple of picks might throw the Giants totally off, depending on what the team in front of them does, or if somebody slides up in front of them, right? But when the Giants get there, they're going to have to look at their players on their board, and they're going to have to say, all right, does this guy fit in the locker room? Yes. How great of a player he is? There's a lot of factors that go into it. And, yes, the Giants are going to sit there and do that. But when it comes to tight end, when you talk about need, I just don't think that was a position that the Giants needed to upgrade this year during the draft.
I totally concur. I would go as far to say, now, if, of course, they wind up taking the tight end at number 6, he is an incredible athlete, a terrific weapon, and I don't for 1 second dispute the fact that he is by far the best tight end in this draft. I don't. And if they take him, well, then I'm sure the coaching staff has figured out a way that they're going to use him, and that's why they're taking him. And I have complete faith and confidence, and I put all the stock in what these guys do because they've done enough in the first 2 years to show me that they know how to build a roster. So if they go that way, I won't dispute it. But right now, on the face of it, from the periphery, if the Giants have Brent Bowers as the best player left on their board at number 6, I would probably be in favor of trading down.
Right.
You with me?
Yeah.
Try to hold the spot for ransom and see what you could get for it. Because they got some other needs.
Well,
they got some other needs.
I like that. And when you talk about tight ends, yes, he can be a game changer. Look, I look back at the Giants. I remember one of the first memories of the Giants, watching on TV and Shockey was a beast. He was an absolute savage.
Yeah, he was something.
Bowers kind of remind me of him a little bit. And I actually played with Shockey. We won a Super Bowl together in New Orleans.
I know you did.
I love Shockey. And I'm not saying there's no game changers like Shockey anymore, but if you do, and if he is, and the Giants get him, and he does produce as we think he could, then it's a home run.
Then great.
Right? But none of that is locked in stone. You literally have to play a couple of years to go ahead and evaluate the whole draft. So
all right.
We'll see.
That'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. You can catch this program and all of our podcasts on the Giants Archive at Giants.com/podcasts and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Big Blue Kickoff Live, as always, is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. For Jonathan Casillas, he is at JCasillas52.
Yes, that's it.
I am at Giants WFAN. Paul Dottino saying so long, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
You deserve to treat yourself, so turn your tax refund into a U fund and give yourself a Straight Talk Wireless Extended Silver Unlimited plan and get a new Samsung Galaxy A14 on them. You can get a great everyday value on wireless with Straight Talk's Unlimited plan starting at $25 a line per month for 4 lines. You'll save so much you'll be enjoying that refund all year long. It's the refund that keeps on refunding. Find Straight Talk at straighttalk.com or at your local Walmart store. Taxes and fees not included. Offer valid through 4/14/24 while supplies last. Online only. Must purchase a Straight Talk Extended Silver Unlimited plan to qualify. Limit of 5 phones per customer. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Not combinable with autopay discount.
Taste the Mediterranean through March 19th at Whole Foods Market. Save on animal welfare certified bone and beef short ribs, sustainable wild-caught sockeye salmon, and more. Find sales on Parmigiano Reggiano, charcuterie and ground lamb. Grab an olive boule bread from the bakery. Plus, wines from the Mediterranean start at just $8.99. Taste the Mediterranean now at Whole Foods Market. Must be 21 plus. Please drink responsibly.